are listening to Talk Amongst Yourself, the solo space where we pause, reflect, and get radically honest. I'm Kaylene. It's been a while. I took a 2-month hiatus because I wanted to take part of the year off from last year's episodes and start up this February. So now I am back. You should get a weekly drop unless something happens that week and I don't have time to get things done or get things to where I want them to be. But the show for this week, I've been told my healing is incomplete if I don't forgive, that I'm holding on to something, that I'm bitter. But here's the truth. Forgiveness is not a requirement for my peace, and I'm done pretending that it is. Society has a huge impact on all of our lives, and forgiveness, specifically cultural expectation of forgiveness, is framed as the moral high ground, the right thing to do, per se. There were times when I was pressured to forgive before I was ready, or I never even wanted to forgive at all. And actually, did I really forgive them? Probably not. It may seem like I forgave you, but honestly, I was always watching you. There's always a watchful eye, depending on what the situation is, right? I have many things that have happened in my past where, I think people thought that I should forgive them or that I should believe them and forgive them. I've always had like this, people have gaydar, I have that too, but I also have this thing where I know when people are lying to me. I feel it, I see it, I watch it. I just know. It's a feeling. I can't explain it any other way. Call it psychic, call it what you will, but I always know when someone's lying to me or BSing me. I got it. I know it. But, I think forgiveness is often used or weaponized against people, especially women, especially against women. And I say women because I'm referring to the women survivors and the caretakers. It is taxing at times, and I think that forgiveness is often used. I mean, look at I'll give you an example of when it's been weaponized or used against women. It looks like, let's look at Hillary Clinton, for example. The whole Monica Lewinsky thing, being part of the public, that whole thing just blew up, right? And I know that she went to counseling with her husband in the Christian faith or whatever, and she forgave him. I mean, that's something that we don't personally know about, but it's a fine example of there are two extremes. Either you were expected to forgive him and move on with life as it was, or B, you were expected to divorce him. And I think a lot of women felt let down because she didn't leave him. She didn't walk away from him. But technically, we don't know what happened behind closed doors. And we don't know if today they're living together, because maybe they're not. Maybe they're living separate lives but stayed together for political reasons, which wouldn't be a surprise to anyone, I don't think, at this point. But, I think that it was weaponized against her because he was the president of the United States. How would it look if a standing president was left by his wife while he was in the White House? So yeah, I think that it was used against her, that for this presidency to succeed, that she had to stay. So who knows though? I mean, I'm just making a guess. I'm just guessing, but I mean, I can speak from my own experiences. Uh the first time I was married to a man. He cheated on me, which he will never ever to this day even admit, but unfortunately, STDs don't just jump in your pants, and you don't certainly just get those from a towel. And I didn't get said STD because he was overseas when this STD, I guess, jumped into his bunk from somebody's towel or something. And I chose to leave him. I chose to say no. I chose to not put up with that and not live with that. And I think, everybody expected me to stay because, oh, you should honor thy husband. Please. I've been a pagan all my life on the inside. I've always known that I wasn't going to abide by the godly rules that were set forth. And I said no. I left him, and even he was shocked when I left him. But I was not going to stay somewhere and forgive someone for treading all over my trust. That just isn't gonna happen. That's just not gonna happen. And I don't think I need to forgive him. And I didn't need to forgive him to move on. I moved on without him. And I'm better for it. I can say that. Now I can say that. I said that then. Um, for me, forgiveness is not a spiritual performance. It's a choice. And sometimes the answer is no. I truly believe that. And I started to think back to my family and how, I think I talked about it before. I talked about how there were always these people at the family gatherings that were child molesters, but nobody ever called them such. Everybody knew, everybody just told you to stay away from them, but nobody ever told you why. And I think that I now know that I'm older, probably when the last large family, super family get together happened, like where all the cousins were there, all the, everyone was there like the last time. And this was, I don't even remember. It was definitely after college. And I remember it was at my aunt's house and it was in her backyard. And I remember one of the uncles that abused my sisters when they lived with him when they were little and they were like in his foster care. He basically, him and his wife, they basically tortured my sisters. And the family that knew didn't believe them because they were kids. I believed them. I know they weren't lying because if you look at them now and the way some of their lives have turned out, you can definitely tell that they were definitely abused. And the abuse was not light. It was rather disgusting. One of my sisters was told for punishment to stand in the corner and stare at the wall until the wall talked back to her. What do you think that did to them as children? What do you think putting a bucket in the room and saying, here's your piss bucket because you're not allowed to use my bathroom did to them? Well, anyway, to me, they don't have to forgive them. I don't forgive them. And at this last family get together that I remember going to, and I think this was the nail in the coffin, this said uncle, my mother's uncle, was invited to this family get together. And I remember people were telling my mom, oh, you need to forgive and forget. You need to forgive him. It's time to forgive. He's dying from cancer. My mom was like, F you and the high horse you rode in on. And you know what? I promise you, I think that was the last time we went to a family get together, a one that was not just the immediate family. That was the last big family get together with all the cousins, the uncles, everybody who was still living, my grandmother, everyone. And my mom was told by her mom, or I don't even know if it was her mom, it was somebody else. Who knows? It was her mom and some other people tried to tell her to forgive this guy. You have lost your ever loving mind if you expected my mother, who is one of the toughest women I have ever met in my life, to forgive this jackass that did that to her children. My mother chose her children over family, and I am perfectly okay with that. And we walked away, and that was honestly the last family get together we were a part of. And I was already older, I was already in college, and I was happy that we all were old enough to understand that. And that was truly the last time that there was ever a family get together that we went to. You know, I get tired of being told, "Oh, you need to be the bigger person." Why would we forgive someone who never apologized or who never admitted their failures? I don't think that is necessary. I don't think that you have to forgive someone if you don't want to forgive someone. And I don't think you should be pushed to forgive someone. But it's funny how family will be the first people to tell you, oh, you need to forgive them. No, hell no. Hell no. There are people in my family I still don't forgive, and I won't forgive, and I don't care what anybody says. Because inside, I'm boiling. Inside, it's fuck you, is what it is. And I don't have remorse for feeling that way. I think if you don't want to forgive somebody, you don't have to forgive somebody. You don't have to. I'm sorry, but you don't. And I don't think anybody should force religion down your throat and tell you that, well, God expects you to forgive. You know what? That is your God. That is your book. You're the one who chooses to believe that way. And that is okay. There is nothing wrong with that. Your way is your way, but you should not push your way on someone else. Just like I shouldn't choose my way on someone else. I don't believe forgiveness is a necessity. I just don't. And I don't think it's a necessity toward your healing. I don't think forgiveness is the all be it and the all encumbrance to you healing. I don't think it has a damn thing with healing to do with healing. You don't have to forgive to heal. You can heal without that. But you don't ever forget. And I don't know how they can expect you to forgive and forget, or to forgive and not forget. I'm not going to forgive you and ever forget. That is never, ever, ever, ever going to happen. I think you should forgive if you think you can trust, if that makes any sense. And I also think that it depends on what you're forgiving. If you're forgiving some sort of trespass that physically harmed someone, that's different. I don't think you have to forgive for healing. Like I watch a lot of these, um, I call it killing porn or killer porn. I watch a lot of the first 48, things like that, forensic files, stuff like that. And I am always amazed by people that actually forgive someone for brutally killing their parents, their siblings, their daughters. I cannot. I would not ever be able to forgive someone for killing someone that was that close to me. There's just no way. And more power to you if you can, but being the bigger person, I don't think that exists in the realm of forgiveness. I don't think that it should exist in the realm of forgiveness or personal feelings. I just, there's being the bigger person at work. That's different. There's being the bigger person in your career. But you don't have to forgive someone for their trespasses. I'm sorry. I just don't believe in that. And being expected to soothe the guilt of someone, because that's what forgiveness is in my eyes. You are forgiving someone to soothe the guilt that they caused damage with. I mean, have I been forgiven in the past? Yes. Yes, I have. I have been forgiven by my spouse before she was my spouse. I have been probably forgiven from my mom, from my mother, from other people, from friends, from family. Yeah, I mean, for doing, you know, for being a jerk, for being an asshole, for, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. And, there are things that I have done in my past that people have forgiven me for, but you know what? I have never, ever expected their forgiveness. I have never, ever asked for their forgiveness, but I have certainly taken accountability for what I have done and the pain I have caused. And there are probably people out there that I have not taken accountability for to their face because they're no longer in my life per se. But yeah, there are definite people that if they were here today, I would definitely admit my wrongs and, let them know I'm sorry for those, but I don't forgive you. I don't expect you to forgive me for those. I think, we all want closure to a certain extent, and we all want, um, I don't know, maybe we want forgiveness to a certain extent, like I said, depending on what it is. But if somebody doesn't forgive me, then it is what it is, and I move on. But I don't rightfully right out be like, I need your forgiveness. And I don't need your forgiveness to move on because I have moved on. There were things that happened in my past, like with friendships. I think I talked about it. I talked about friendships that went sideways and I didn't know why, and I always wanted to know why. But at this point in my life, I think when you reach a certain point, you just get to the I don't give a shit stage of your life. And when you're there, you truly don't care. You truly don't care. I mean, honestly, there are very few people I really, really care about what they think about me. And I think that they know who they are. I have a couple of close friends that I care about and that we confront each other when necessary. We talk about things when necessary. We give each other advice when necessary. And we're long life friends, at this point. And I'm okay with that. But we talk about things that have hurt our feelings, but whether forgiveness is involved or not, I don't know that it is. It's more of an understanding. It's more of a, let's talk about this. Why did this bother me? And I'm going to tell you why it bothered me. And I'm going to listen to why it bothered you. But at the same time, if it wasn't meant in malice, then I'm going to tell you that. And I'm going to tell you there's no forgiveness that needs to happen between us because we've already just shared what we felt like, and forgiveness, it does oftentimes become an unpaid emotional labor, you know, work you never agreed to do. So why do we need to do it if it is such? And, some people want forgiveness, not for your healing, but for their own comfort. And I'm sorry, but I'm not responsible for someone else's redemption arc, nor am I responsible for someone else's soul on this planet. I truly believe that we are all in charge of our own souls. And I think that's why I have a hard time, once again, with religion and forgiveness. Religion says you must forgive, and I don't believe that. I do not firmly believe that you have to forgive people. We're being told that we have to forgive people, being told to move on after harm or disrespect has happened. And you know what? That right there is something that happens oftentimes in the workplace. I mean, that's true. We are told in the workplace that we have to move on after harm or disrespect. And, that's kind of messed up. Really, it is kind of messed up. But I think it depends on the intentions of that disrespect. Was it done purposely? Was it done in malice? Was it done because somebody's climbing the corporate ladder? Did someone step on you purposely? You know what? That's when you always keep your enemies close, right? But you watch everything. And I'm a watcher. That's just who I am. I'm a watcher, and I usually know who I can trust and who I can't trust. And when I back away from you, that means I know that you cannot be trusted. And as soon as you cannot be trusted, I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to go above and beyond to help you. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be empathetic towards your situation, but I'm going to follow the rules to a T. I'm not going to be, and I have discretion in certain areas, but that discretion is not going to be there for you. And that's exactly how I feel about it. It's just not going to be there for you. You know, um, Through a family lens, I'm not going to forgive you because you're family. I shouldn't have to forgive you because you're family. Through the cultural lens, the myth that forgiveness equals strength and refusal equals bitterness, that is a bunch of bullshit. Bullshit. In reality, closure doesn't require forgiveness. It requires clarity. You know, Forgiveness is not the doorway to closure. It's the clarity. In my opinion, again, forgiveness is not the doorway to closure, but sometimes clarity is. And I think if you're clear on a situation and you have an understanding, then that's okay. Because closure without reconciliation is okay. I don't think you have to have closure for reconciliation to happen or to not happen. I hope that makes sense what I just said. You don't have to have closure with reconciliation. Reconciliation is not a necessity, not all the time, because I don't have to reconcile with everyone that I've had issues with. I'm sorry. I'm not going to reconcile to my rapist. That's just not going to happen. I'm not reconciling with you. I don't forgive you. I don't. I'm not going to forgive the man that came into our house uninvited and basically did this over and over again to put fear in my family, fear that still exists in me 40 years later. I don't have to forgive you for what you did, and I don't forgive you for what you did, and I wish I knew you. And you know what? Karma has probably taken care of you, so I'm okay with that too. You know, we don't have to open a closed door. We don't have to do that. If you've already closed a door on someone without forgiveness, there is not a damn thing wrong with that. And don't let anybody tell you there is. You know, to choose distance instead of dialogue, there is nothing wrong with that. I do that all the time. If somebody wrongs me, I'm going to distance myself from you. I don't need you. I don't need you in my everyday life because I don't need people like that. If I have to forgive you for doing something completely awful, and it's not necessarily the way you live your life, because I could care about that. As long as you hurt no other and you don't hurt children, I don't care what you do in your life. As long as you're happy, And I think sometimes, and I've had to learn this, it's okay to end relationships without final conversation. It happens. Sometimes we have to end relationships and let go without offering absolution. I don't have to do that. This is about reclaiming your right to end things on your terms. And that is okay. And I will tell you this, I don't owe anyone forgiveness to be free. If you've been told that you're cold for not forgiving, well, me too. If you've been pressured to reconcile with someone who harmed you, me too. If you've chosen clarity over absolution, then you're not alone. You're not broken. You're awake. I'll be back next Sunday. Until then, stay soft, stay brave, stay grounded, and keep talking amongst yourself. Forgiveness is not a necessity.